Hey guys, I'm Ancient Designs and welcome back to my YouTube channel. So if you've seen my Ottawa Comic Con vlog, you would have seen that some of my friends made some absolutely gorgeous versions of Fallon and Lyos from Delicious in Dungeon or Dungeon Meshi, depending on which translation you're going by. They made these quite quickly so they'd have something to wear in time for the Ottawa Comic Con Masquerade. They did a great job. They ended up getting Best in Show presentation for an absolutely hilarious skit. Go check it out over on their profiles. As we were getting ready that morning, I am half in gray face paint for my Rosie cosplay, and I'm looking at them getting ready and I'm saying I love these designs. They're very fun. You can see a lot of them in it. You can see a lot of AStrangeCrow and ChunkyChickadee in the designs, and you can see how they've pulled different things from the characters. You can see that they're very fun designs. Yeah, I just kind of went, maybe I like the Marcille a lot. I can relate to Marcille a ton. And I kind of go, maybe I should make a Marcille to go with you guys. That's when ChunkyChickadee, without even like no hesitation, like hardly even blink, looks at me and goes, but if you do, you have to make it under a month. Now you see, I don't crunch. I don't do that, but I did see this as a bit of a challenge. I don't like working when the deadline is a month away, but because I don't have any actual deadline for it, if it does take me over a month, it's no big deal. So I've decided I am going to try to make it quickly. So welcome to my making an original Marcille cosplay in hopefully under a month challenge. Today is November 3rd, and that's the day we are starting on this project. Before I get to anything though, I'm gonna go grab my sketchbook with the design and go over kind of what I'm thinking of doing. It will definitely probably not end up the exact same as it is on the sketch, just because of the nature of this kind of challenge. So I'll go over the sketch a little bit and then we can get going. So I took out my croquis sketchbook, which has the croquis already drawn on them, so I can start just sketching. You can kind of see where I was originally going and where I ended up, and this is mostly the design we're going off of here. What I have here is a long dress. I might put a slit in it, but we'll see where we go from there. But I have this nice blue dress here. This is gonna be blue. I'm also trying to make this a little bit of a scrap epic challenge. I've hardly bought anything for it. There's a few things I've had to purchase. But I have this nice blue dress. I'm going to use leftover silk dupioni from my Snow White cosplay because color-wise, it's kind of perfect. It's gorgeous. There's velvet on the Foam and Feather Duo's cosplays and stuff like that. So different form of like luxury fabric. Not their sibling. They're siblings with each other, so they both have velvet elements. I'm gonna have silk dupioni. And then I'm going to have a small little corset here, a little corset belt. I'm going to reuse my corset belt from my Sun Zelda cosplay. Just instead, the closure is going to be on the back. And I decided, because I've been wanting to practice embroidery a lot, that I'm going to make it a little bit embroidered on the front. I know that takes time, but it's also just for my own self-indulgent here. And I can make a corset belt pretty darn quickly. So I'm not too worried about the time that's gonna add to it. I just wanna make it pretty. And then I'm going to have these little, not attached, little puff sleeves. I purchased some organza. It's not the same color as my silk, but it actually looks really cool with it. And make these little puff sleeves with little like wristbands on them. So a wristband up here and a little band up here at the top that they're gonna be gathered into. Because I just feel like it kind of suits, like despite her being an elf, like you can see I experimented with long elf sleeves, but she already has long elf sleeves, and I do love the fancy look of a big puffed unattached sleeve as well that you see a lot in fantasy costumes and like fan-made fantasy costumes. And I'm probably gonna put some ribbon flowers in her hair. So we're playing around with a lot of blues, gold trims. I went and purchased some gold trim for this. A little bit of floral embroidery. That's going to be references to other things in the show. But yeah, this is the design we're starting with. So in my efforts to not purchase any new patterns, I'm using this silly little Halloween costume one. I'm going to alter it a bit because it's only like an underbust design. I'm gonna bring it down a little bit. We're going to play around with it a little bit, but there's our neckline shape. So I don't have to pattern draft something completely new. I just really need to alter something that's already made, which is very convenient. There's a skirt on here. It is an A-line style. I might use it, I don't know. I'm going to go lay this out on the ground, get some things figured out for the mock-up, and if I'm happy with it, then we're gonna start sewing the costume. Let's get into this day one of working on my Make Marcille as Fast as Possible challenge. Okay, so I've gone through the mock-up process, and I now have my little front piece. I have a little back piece. a side front piece, and also a large skirt. What I've ended up doing with the skirt, I did not use the skirt from the pattern and lengthen it. Instead, I just made a quarter circle skirt, and I decided I will put a slit on it because in my mock-up, it added a lot more flowiness and was just really pretty. So I'm also gonna have a seam right there to make that slit. What I'm gonna do now is I'm going to get my fabrics out. The first thing I'm gonna do is work on this, get the bodice cut out, and then I'm gonna start with the princess seams on the front. Now the mock-up originally had a dart, but then the dart just was not working enough, and there was some gaping at the armhole as well, so I just turned that into a curved seam, a curved princess seam. So the first thing I'm gonna do is put those together on both the outside and the lining, and then I'm gonna put together the side seams and the shoulder seams, and then I'll worry about the collar probably actually towards the end actually. So I'm not gonna worry about the collar yet. So I'm just gonna get it all just pieced together first and foremost. Okay, so I now have a completed lining piece. It's made out of little cotton fabrics, actually leftovers also for my Snow White cosplay. Very different shade of blue from this, but you'll never see it, so that's fine. And then I have the shell layer made with my beautiful silk dupioni from Silk Baron. It's leftovers from my Snow White cosplay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach these two layers together, but only at the armholes, because the neckline and the back and the bottom are all going to be treated very differently. So essentially I'm going to pin them together or attach them together, stitch around them, and then I'm going to pull it inside out, clip and snip some of the edges, and press it down so it's nice and clean around the armholes. So I totally forgot just to keep part of it open in order to do that. So I'm now having to open up the shoulder a little bit so I can actually pull it inside out later. So I'm just gonna do that and fix this real quick, and then I'll have a finished bodice. Woo! Okay, so I have a bodice all finished over here. Well, mostly finished. I can't work on the neckline yet because I need to put the zipper in before I can do the collar. But I now am going to cut out the fabric for the skirt. It is a simple quarter circle skirt, and I am going to make it in 3 pieces. So 1 in the front, and actually 2 in the front, 2 in the back. There's gonna be 4 because I want to put a leg slit in this. But before I can do that, I am going to first French seam the seams. I'm not serging or anything like that. So put them together, wrong sides together, trim down the seam allowance, and then put them together, right sides together. This makes a beautiful enclosed seam and looks really, really nice in this form of silk. And also working with silk, I much prefer using forms like this to finish the edges over serging. It just looks better in the silk. And then I'm going to cut a line up at the front, open it up, and that is going to be the leg slit. It is going to be sewn down only a little bit, and I'm gonna just press over all the edges and have a long like hem line all the way up. So it's a very simple way to add in a leg slit, just to add a little bit of extra flowiness and movement, because I feel like this kind of costume kind of needs that element. The hem will probably be done at the same time that I do the front seam for the leg slit. That'll be adding in here, so that'll probably be done around the same time that I do that. Again, that's gonna be a very simple hem. You flip it over 2 times and top stitch down by machine. And then I can think about attaching it to the bodice, and then I can think about the zipper. But first we need to get this skirt constructed into one piece before I can start treating it like anything else. And I'm gonna see how much of the dress I can get done on day 1 of making this thing. This is going really well so far, despite even making a mistake already, so let's keep going. Okay, so it is now the following day, and I'm back to working on the dress. I've gotten a lot of it done. It is now like, it is one piece. It's not complete, and I wouldn't wear it as a dress because it's open in the back right now, but it's a full piece. I've done the invisible zipper. So the invisible zipper, I used my zipper foot and then went along the zipper line. I unfortunately don't have any zippers in quite the right color, but it is an invisible zipper, so hopefully it won't be seen too much on the actual garment. It shouldn't get pulled on too much. And I'm gonna press the edges so it sits nicely. Now that I have the zipper in, I can actually deal with the seam on the back. So that's gonna be another French seam, and I'm just gonna work around the zipper to put it in. So wrong sides together followed by right sides together. I should get a nice flat full seam on there, and that should be nice and satisfying. And that will make it a complete, like an actual garment, because right now, again, there's a hole in the back. That's not a completed garment. The dress is very sleek right now, and I'm really enjoying the way it looks. Honestly, I could just wear the dress on its own to like a formal function and it'd be pretty nice. I'm really happy to be using this silk again. It is absolutely gorgeous. And yeah, this has been really enjoyable so far, and I might have an actual like completed garment on my hands today, or at least by the end of the week. So yeah, it's going super, super well, and I can't wait to keep working on it. So I'm gonna get to that right now. I now have the lining all attached onto the inside of the dress. The zipper is all in. I have the collar now attached as well. I just need to put some hook and eyes on the back of it. But I now have this really pretty shape here. I really like how the fit of this all looks on me as well. It is all hemmed, and honestly, I'm really happy with how it's looking. So this is where it's currently at, and now I just need to do some things to it. So on my sketch, I have a little bit of like just triangles on the bottom, and that's kind of represent a trim like this one. This is one of the only things I purchased. I think I only purchased actually 2 things to make this costume. This is one of them because I didn't have a trim like this already. So I'm going to put this towards the bottom of the hem, so it's gonna have to be sewn down in a few places so it doesn't like flop over. I really like this trim because it looks very floral. I kind of associate Marcille with florals and flowery things and like plants and all of that. I might cut into some pieces later too, cut some of these down to make a new trim to apply elsewhere on the design. To balance out the gold a little bit. I'm going to see what fits and what works, but essentially I will likely have to do some hand application to get this to work 100% properly. We're going to see how that all goes, but now we're just on to decorating this particular dress. I will probably add some other things later, maybe some sequins, stuff like that, but that's as I make pieces of the costume. First, I just need to get that part of the dress done in order to see the vision for the other pieces. I now have a dress that has a collar, some lace on the collar, I've hand sewn on some lace along the bust line, and also all the gorgeous lace on the hem. But this means that the actual physical dress, now that the zipper's in, now that the neck is in, now that all the laces are in, is finished. And that is 2 days worth of work. Not even a full 2 days, because it's not like I spent the entire both days working on it. So that means I can work on the next element, and the next element is the little sleeves. I say little sleeves, they're actually not that little. I have these unattached puff sleeves happening here. To make it very visually interesting, I've gotten this organza. It's not the same color, but it complements it. And especially when it's on its own, I feel like that's gonna be really quite visually interesting, especially if the cuffs are going to be the same color. Now, I have quite a bit of it, but pattern-wise, the plan that I'm going with is that I'm going to do some measurements, first of all, on my arm. And I'm gonna cut out long, almost rectangular pieces, except I'm going to make it expand out and curve at the bottom and a little bit at the top too. Now, when you add a curve into something that you end up gathering, it creates this very blousy effect. There's a lot of excess that kind of rolls over instead of like it all getting just pulled into the wrist once it gets all gathered. So I want this trapezoidal shape and the curve at the bottom to really add in that fantasy-esque excess kind of thing. I'm only going to sew it down a little bit because I need to have like essentially like a little fake placket to get my arm in and out of this thing. So I'm going to leave a few inches when I sew it down at first. So we're gonna sew it, it started off like a normal flat seam, and going to leave about, I think about 3 inches will be enough, 3 inches of space. And then I'm gonna go in and press those seam allowances under and top stitch them down so that it's a nice finished seam and doesn't fray all over the place. This essentially creates the effect of a placket without being in a real actual placket. It creates a very nice, really nice finish on the inside so it's not fraying all over the place. And considering the fabric's see-through, it won't look like heck. And then I need to make some little cuffs. I want to see if I can manage to make a little pointed cuff over the hand. So I'm gonna play around with some shapes and the measurements of my wrist. This I want to open and close with a little button, which is why I need it to have a placket of sorts so I can actually open and close the sleeve to get it on and off my wrist. And then I'm gonna see what I want to do for the upper arm. I think that one might also just be a little cuff with snaps, or I might elasticize it. I'm not sure yet because it is going on one of the wider parts of my arm. And I'm also, of course, gonna use some of the leftovers of this lace because I only have a little bit left. I'm gonna play around with it as well onto the cuffs. I actually would really love to have the point of the lace on my hand. I think that would be really, really pretty. That's where we're at on this. I think I can manage to get these done pretty quickly. I've been doing a lot of puff sleeves recently, so I should be a pro at this by now, you'd think. Sleeves are done, and I've now tried on the dress with it, and I'm honestly pretty stoked with how it's looking. I didn't end up having to put any elastic in these armbands, and they just kind of stay. They are kind of open on the sides though to make that happen, but it works. I really love how these little wristbands look with the dress. I am really, really happy with it. Let me see if I can get a better full body look at it. One second. Gold at the bottom. Ah, I love it. I'm very happy with this. It's turning out pretty cute and pretty true also to my design. I've changed up a few things. I decided not to put the lace on the sides because that would be underneath my armpits and that's uncomfortable. So instead I put it along the bust line, which fits perfect. I am honestly really happy with the whole fit of everything and how it's looking. Honestly, the whole thing's a look and I really, really like it so far. Oh, I forgot to check in as well. Today is November 6th, so it's a Thursday. I started working on this on Sunday, so you know, we've made some really good progress considering, and like I'm wearing a garment already, three garments technically with the little sleeves. Look at that wristband, I love it. So the next piece that I'm working on is the corset, or the corset belt. And for this, I am using the same pattern that I used for my son Zelda cosplay, except I am reversing where the closure is. So the closure will be on the back instead with a red cord, because I do plan on putting a little red bow on the neckline of this costume and other red elements here and there. It's still gonna have the point in the front, but I've decided, because I really, really want to practice embroidery, that I'm going to do some embroidery on the corset. I know I'm doing this as like a make it quick challenge, like I'm trying to make it like a speed build almost. Not quite a speed build, I'm not speeding through it, but like it's meant to be a quick build. I'm like, embroidery, that adds a lot of time, especially hand embroidery. Embroidery is something I really, really want to practice on. I have been practicing a lot recently on embroidery. You can see this adorable little embroidery hoop I made for my friend Flora Chaos. It is their logo. Well, I've made them a logo. It is their name, Flora Chaos, in like a font of a metal band surrounded by florals because Flora Chaos. Anyway, been practicing embroidery and having a lot of fun with it. So I decided that that kind of suits Marcille as well. So the front of the corset and maybe a little bit of the sides are going to have some embroidery designs on them. I've made some extra sketches and I'm going to transfer the design I've come up with and put it on to the front of the belt. So my plan is it's gonna be mostly florals, but then I'm also gonna put some strawberries on there. Every flower I've decided to put on there has like a reasoning with the design and with Marcille. Like the azalea, that's gonna be the big front and center design, the pink flower. I'm putting that on there because that is the flower that Fallon gives to her in the show. And there is some symbolism with that for sure. And it's pink and red, so there's gonna be more red pulled into the design. And then there is also going to be some daisies just to add in some white and gold colors, some bluebells, which I feel like just really fit Marcille really, really well. And then of course, strawberry plants, because they match the daisy, but then the red strawberries also bring in more of that red, and also they're strawberries, and this is an anime about eating food. So that felt really, really appropriate. I was originally gonna play around with some of the things that are in the show, but they didn't feel quite as pretty to me, so adding in these flowers I feel like makes the most amount of sense. So I'm going to be spending the next little bit doing various embroidery stitches to try to figure out exactly how I want this embroidery to go. I might be doing some embroidery times with some friends, so I'll check in with that if I end up doing that. And before I cut out any of the pieces, the plan is also, like, I'm not gonna cut out the corset piece. I'm going to thread mark the lines where the seam allowances and stuff normally would be so that I can stay within the lines, make sure it's centered, and then I'll cut out the piece and deal with it afterwards so it all fits on an embroidery hoop nice and comfortably. Because otherwise I'd be putting it close to an edge and it wouldn't fit on an embroidery hoop very well. So if you see thread marks, that is why, because I will be thread marking the heck out of this thing. Very much looking forward to these steps, and I'm getting very, very excited about this project just as a whole. It is currently November 12th. There were a few days where I didn't get any progress done, but I did have some opportunities to get some progress done and finished all the embroidery pieces for the corset, which is the center front piece, which I am so darn happy with. And then these side pieces, which didn't turn out quite as good because they're the ones I did first, but that's exactly why I did them first. They're not the central focus. I did these two pieces on Thursday. It's currently Tuesday, by the way. Friday, I spent the day over at Doki Doki Belleville with my friends because they were the ones who instigated this whole project to begin with. So went over and did some hand embroidery with them at the store, hung out, talked to some people, and it was a lot of fun. So I didn't get as much progress as I would if I was just sitting alone. But it was a really fun way because that's the nice thing about handwork and embroidery is that you can sit, get work done, and also have some social time and really enjoy it. And then I finished off the embroidery yesterday on Monday. So we're on Tuesday and now I can actually start sewing the corset together. Now over on my Instagram, I do post as I work on things. And as I was posting work in progresses of this particular piece of embroidery, a lot of people were asking about the lines that surround the piece. Now those lines mark the cut line and then the seam line. And also I can see the lines on the opposite side as well. This helps me so that I'm sewing everything together. I can make sure all these lines line up 100%. If I were to just mark it with pencil or something, it would come off, and you also couldn't see it on the other side. So this is the best way to add in anything of that nature so you can keep your markings. And because of the embroidery, I need to make sure that the markings are precise. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna cut out the rest of the corset belt pieces, and then I'm gonna start to piece this together. I am piecing this together differently from the way I did my first one, which was on my son Zelda. I'm gonna make a lining side and a good side and then put them together pillowcase style. But I am going to be adding some boning channels on the lining side so you won't see it on the outside. All right, so I now have the corset shell all sewn up, and I have the corset lining all sewn up, which means the next thing I need to deal with is the boning. I'm going to be using some leftover spiral steel boning and caps. So first I'm going to cut all of my boning pieces down to length by cutting into the spirals. Now I decided to add a center front seam despite the fact that my outside pieces don't have it, so I can have a nice structured front so that those embroideries do not get scrumpled up when I'm wearing the garment. So that'll keep them nice and structured, and I will be doing 2 bones right down the center front. I'm going to be making boning channels by essentially top stitching down the seam allowances on the lining side of the corset, and eventually I will be slipping them inside those channels. Once all of that is ready and I have all my boning and my channels ready, I'm going to actually sew the good side and the lining side together around the sides, what ends up being the center back, all along the bottom and around the other side, leaving the top open. That way there I can flip it inside out, press the bottom, and I can start to slip in the boning into the piece. I will eventually be flipping over the top and then hand slip stitching that all down so there's a nice clean finish, and using those thread markings from before as a way to guide the folding to keep it all nice and clean and in place just the way it should. Then I'll have a full corset piece and I can focus on the eyelets. Now I'm gonna see if I can use my brand new hole punch that Sam got me for my birthday to punch in the holes. Now I won't have to use the archaic method I was using before of like stabbing holes into it with tools that don't work very well at doing their job. And then I will have a finished corset. Okay, so the date is Thursday, November 14th, and I've gotten quite a bit done. So yesterday I was working on getting some of the hand finishings done on the corset belt. So I decided to go in and hand top stitch down some areas to kind of flatten it out, strengthen it a bit, and just make it look a little cleaner. I used hand top stitching because I top stitched with a machine that I'd run into the issue of potentially hitting the needle, like some of the bones on the needle. So I went in by hand and did it. It took quite a bit of time, but it honestly paid off because this is ended up being a really cute piece. So the corset belt is now complete. The hand finishing honestly really ties it all together really well. And then I've gone and added a red cording to the back to tie it all up. All in all, very happy with this piece, and I'll be able to use it on other costumes. If I ever cosplay Marcille's regular design, I might just use it on that as well, because it turned out really quite cute and I'm really happy with it. Also, the hand top stitching really adds a crafty feeling to it that matches the state of the embroidery that is already on it. Now, last night I also did some other work, and that was on the flower crown. So my mom actually went out and purchased some of these like pre-made little flower crown things for me to like test out, experiment with, and maybe try out for bridesmaids, wedding dresses, stuff like that, because my wedding is gonna be coming up next year. And I took one that looked very similar to this one. This is actually a different style than the one I ended up using. I used one that was very similar to this, took it all apart and started to fashion it into this with some of the colors that match and some flowers, some ribbon flowers that I already had from Sam's family. So what I essentially did, I kind of looked at the piece and figured out how it was done, and basically it was one piece of wire that was wrapped around the whole entire thing. So I unwrapped the whole thing and loosened off all the different elements, and then I decided which elements from it I wanted to keep. So I kept these like glassy beads that were these big like petals and some pearls, and also these bluish beads that have a little pearl down the center, and the gold filigrees. And then I added on some of the elements I wanted to add, like the red and the blues and the red ribbon. So basically I took the elements that I wanted and started to twist them all back on. That's how the original crown was made. I know it's not the cleanest finish ever, but because it ends up on your hair, you don't see any of the messiness because it's in hair. There's a lot of texture, there's like, it falls into it. And because I'll be wearing a wig, it'll be perfectly comfortable because I won't even feel it. So I wrapped in the dark blues and the reds, and I really do like the finished product. It matches really well with the finished dress and the whole look. I did try it all on the other night, and it turned out better than I would have expected for someone who's never done really little flower crown type things. So a very interesting like before and after of like what it looked like and what it looks like now. I basically completely changed the aesthetic of it. This also means that I am very close to finishing this costume. The elements I have left to do are the wig and some little red bows. I'm actually gonna be using some leftover fabric again for the bows, and they are made of silk dupioni, and it is the red fabric that I actually used on my Monica cosplay. I wanted to give her a little bow tie at the neck of sorts because she usually has like a little red accents. So I'll just make some quick little red bows, and they're gonna be very quick to put together, mostly just squares tied together. And then I'm going to figure out which one I want to put at the neckline to be the finished little bow tie. I don't think I'll make it removable. I think I'll just tack it on there. I think I might be finishing the costume today. If that is the case, it took me 10 whole days to make this cosplay, not working on it every single day. We're getting to the finale of making this cosplay in under a month, and I can safely answer that yes, I can make an original design of a original design cosplay in under a month as challenged by my friends Foam and Feather, which is hilarious because originally like, can you do it in 2 weeks? And I said, okay, no, give me a month, let's be realistic. Turns out I can do it in 2 weeks. So I can match that energy. So I have my little bows in place. I decided to add a little bit of gold to this one to match other areas of the costume. And honestly, the fact that the fabric is the same like texture, just a different color, it's really tying the whole piece together and making it really, it makes it feel more Marcille-like, I find. Time to start playing around with the wig. So this is in Aurora in light blonde from Arta Wigs. This is actually my old Zelda wig, and it's been through some things. I'm gonna probably brush it out first. I have a few combs and such. Start to tease around the bangs because there is a slight bang to this style, maybe cut in some bangs. And then I'm gonna figure out what I wanna do for styling. Marcille is known for having multiple hairstyles, so that makes it very, very fun. I think I can manage to make something that feels very Marcille, that feels very in character and fits this design. I'm going to get to work and see where the wig takes me and see what we end up with. So let's finish off this cosplay. Okay, so today is November 23rd, 2024. My costume's been done for a while now, but today my friend Marley's coming over. Marl's Photography and Marl's Cosplay, and we are going to be shooting the costume and the reveal for my original Marcille cosplay. So before, as I'm like getting ready here, like I'm taking out my earrings, putting on wig, cap, makeup, everything, I thought I'd give you guys the little rundown of how this whole project went. The challenge was to make it in under a month, and certainly it is under a month. I started 20 days ago, and I mean, I'm already at a point where I was able to schedule a shoot with a friend. So obviously we met that. In total, it took me from November 3rd to, I believe it was November 14th. Let me double check my calendar. Yes, I finished it on November 14th. So in all, that's about 10 days. But the thing is, I didn't work on it every single day of those 10 days. It took 10 calendar days, yes. But I was also doing other things on some of those days where I didn't even touch the costume. So it actually took more like 7 days. All in all, I would say it was a pretty big success with the challenge. Now today I get to put it all together and we get to really see how it's really going. But all in all, very happy with how it went. And I'm really excited to show you guys the full reveal. I'm going to be freezing my butt off in order to wear this costume today because it is November in Canada. Totally worth it because Marley's an incredible photographer. So enjoy the reveal. Now, all in all, something fun about this cosplay, original designs, they just allow for a little bit more creativity than you usually get to do. Now, is this my magnum opus of a cosplay? Absolutely not. It's honestly, it's really pretty. I got to reuse some other elements from other cosplays. Well, challenge was a success, I'd say, and I cannot wait to wear this cosplay to some conventions in the future. So thank you guys all so much for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, and all that good stuff. And I shall see you in the next video. Bye-bye!
I attempt my attempt. The cheap man's gimbal.
Gotta get that recording in the back.
Look at those details. It's so pretty.